Welcome back to the MassCUE Get a Q podcast. My name is Brandon Hall. I'm pleased to be joined by a trio of expert tech directors today. I'm joined alongside by Jonathan Gallishaw, who is the Director of Technology in Dartmouth Public Schools, Colleen Terrill, who is in the Seekonk Public Schools, and Karen Winsper in the Norton Public Schools. Welcome, tech directors.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you. Hey, Brandon.
Yeah. Hey, so this is our first real roundtable discussion we've had on the Get a Q podcast. We had one sort of with John O'Neill and his students, but in the last season. But here we are with tech directors talking COVID and some of the challenges that we've faced here and the major changes that have occurred in the last 10 months now in our jobs. It's been a challenge.
I know. I'm not
that
counting.
That is an understatement.
It's been 398 days, just so you know. 398 days, but I'm not counting.
It feels like 398 days in one day.
It does.
Right. So, Jonathan, what sort of changes have you seen, in the course of, say, I kind of look at things as like pre-March 12th and post-March 13th. As March 13th is kind of the high, the dividing line. Since March 13th, what challenges and changes have you seen in Dartmouth?
Well, I think what's amazing is on March 12th, our world turned upside down and it became a fire drill. I was introduced to a word called Zoom, which I had never heard of before, except for a PBS station, old television show that used to play in the 70s when I was a kid. I loved it. It was called Zoom. But anyway, Zoom was introduced, and it came like a banshee out of the darkness. But coupled that with the fact the mad rush to get remote learning working. We have always dabbled with it. We've always wanted to go in that direction. We had done 1-to-1, 8 through 12, and we were taking it one step at a time. But then all of a sudden, March 12th happened. So distribution of thousands of Chromebooks, getting the teachers online, going to their houses, trying to get laptops and such. And then the mad rush on the supply line, because in so many cases, and I'm sure other tech directors have felt this way too, but purchasing computers wasn't that easy. And getting them in good order was not that easy, and enrolling them and such. In some cases, we waited months for computers. Mm-hmm. We're actually just getting some that we had ordered about 4 months ago. And it's amazing.
Yeah. Now, Colleen, you were in the midst of beginning a 1-to-1 program. Is that correct in Seekonk?
Yeah, we had been planning for our middle school to go 1-to-1 through the year. And, we're taking our time, really planning it out, figuring out how it was going to go. And then March 12th happened. It was like out the window. So we went from just our middle school being 1-to-1 to actually our entire district. And if you look at it, almost all of our elementary kids have a Chromebook at home as well in the classroom. So we're pretty much 2-to-1, pre-K through 5, and 1-to-1, 6 to 12. So thousands of devices, as Jonathan said, have been handed out to parents and students and teachers. It's been a challenge.
Yeah, and all of that planning that goes into a program like that has to happen immediately and falls on just a couple of people. Now, Karen, Norton was already 1-to-1.
We were almost fully 1-to-1.
Okay.
In March. We had students grades 3 to 12 who had Chromebooks. Our 3, 4, and 5 students, though, they were on carts. So the devices were, in school. They didn't take them home, whereas our middle school and high school students kind of were able to take them back and forth. So the challenge, and I don't know why I thought to send them home on that last or potential last day.
Sure.
But 3, 4, and 5, we had to dismantle the carts, take the chargers and the Chromebooks, and send them home with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, like in one day. So my small team, knocked it out of the park, and we were able to do that, with classroom teachers who helped as well. So our issues were with our primary students, because we had shared carts of iPads and did not have enough in the district for all of those students. So that was more of trying to manage who actually needs a device at home, who has something that they can use. And we were really just trying to collect every possible device that was left in district so that we could distribute to families in need.
Yeah, and
getting those sorry, Brandon,
No,
but
go
getting
ahead.
those Chromebooks out at first, we didn't send them home. And because we weren't one-to-one, that very first week after we shut down, it was like a machine here. My technicians were ripping apart carts, teachers and our whole central office was jumping in, and we were assigning Chromebooks, cleaning them, writing down all the information, and it was like clockwork. We had principals outside, we had teachers outside, and all sorts of volunteers, and parents drove up, they signed paperwork, they got the Chromebook, and off they went. It was madness, but it worked.
Yeah, and I know
We had a device in the spring.
and we were in a similar position in Pembroke where we were not a one-to-one school district, and we had to, in quick order, find devices to give out to families that didn't have them. And in the same ways, we were ripping apart carts. That we had a cart system in our middle school and high school, and then we were ravaging through classrooms that had 8, 10, 12 devices in each one, and we're trying to find similar devices so at least our technicians knew when a parent called what kind of thing they had to work on. And since then, we've thankfully gotten money from CARES and money from DESE to purchase devices. And, a 5-year plan was enacted in 5 weeks, as we've kind of jokingly said before.
Seriously, yes.
And
For sure.
Yeah. And so our group, the 4 of us are part of a group called SCITT that meets monthly when, pre-C Day, COVID Day, March 13th. So pre-C Day, we met monthly, and we had all these discussions about planning and purchasing and how to do things. And all of that has kind of since gone out the window and become a virtual group. And all of that great planning has kind of, it's been panic mode since then, right?
Yeah.
How have you found... How have you found the way to get things out to people that they've needed that, say you get out of a group like SCITT? How do you share that information to your staffs?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, the SCITT group is invaluable, and the meetings we'd have, if nothing else, were therapeutic because people were in the same boat you were. But that was a big factor too, not just the distribution of Chromebooks, but then the whole infrastructure or kind of logistics around ones that don't work, people that have problems, getting them. And we've had to have open houses at night so people could come out and swap out Chromebooks and get some support through glass, through plexiglass on how to fix things. But I think it's just that's been a big factor too. But anything SCITT has talked about has been invaluable because you just don't want to reinvent the wheel. If people have a certain model of how to do something, we've always been very forthcoming about, okay, what has worked for you very well? Because I don't want to reinvent it. I can share what I've learned and say, definitely try this product, definitely do things this way.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the SCITT people have found that comfort. I know I have, in people giving their testimonial to things.
I would agree, Jonathan. I would also add that it's like a collective brain power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got people who are new. We have veterans, veteran tech directors in the group, and I feel as though nobody could plan for a pandemic and plan for the amount of strain, we'll say, on the tech departments, because whether you had a small department or a large department, the scale in which you had to ramp things up was just bananas. That's my word of the year.
Yeah.
And I feel like SCITT, you could always lean on the tech directors in the SCITT group for help.
And for those folks who don't know, SCITT is a special interest group from MassCUE. We know now it's 25 years old. Some of the members that started originally are still with us. So, that collective wisdom has been incredible. I know I could not have survived this craziness without all of you. Being able to email or pick up the phone, text each other, like, what the heck are you doing with this? Especially trying to hand out all the devices that we had to hand out. And like Jonathan said, the infrastructure, is it going to handle all these devices that we're just throwing at it? How are the teachers going to handle it? Where do I buy this? How do I get that? Just all of those questions that kept coming up were, without this group, I don't know that we would have made it. I think I'd still be in a mess. So those that might be listening know that it's so important to have that professional learning network, and we're lucky enough to have each other in a group that's been around for such a long time.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talked about in our little pre-interview was about sustainability for some of these things. That the CARES money was a one-time sort of donation, I suppose, from the federal government to our districts. And so was the DESE grant. That this was money that we received as a one-time offer, and for us, it was able to get us enough devices pre-K through 12 to have one in every student's hands. We've also now had to add on all sorts of pieces of software to manage these things that we had never had to do before. How do you foresee yourself or your districts keeping this sort of thing sustainable? The other thing we talked about was all the great free trials from these ed tech companies in the spring, like, hey, give a try to XYZ product, and let us know what you think, and the teachers are like, oh yeah, it's great, we love it, we gotta have XYZ, without really looking at the privacy policies, which we'll forget for right now. We'll just focus on sustainability. How do we sustain this funding situation?
I'll be riding the getaway car. Who wants to go into the bank and rob it? I mean, I don't know what way we're going to be able to afford it.
Right. So I think that the challenges become, what are the district's priorities, right? And if you're in a hybrid or fully remote versus fully face-to-face, there's definitely some things I think we could scale back on depending upon the mode of our instruction. But I have to tell you, one of the issues that we had was, our littles who had never had devices at home signing in and logging in to all of these programs. So for us, a priority to try to keep our parents and families sane was trying to get a single sign-on, and kind of evaluating those and trying to use the free version versus a paid option. And then for me now, looking at we're in January, and so it's budget season for tech directors and districts. Now it is, okay, well, what are we planning for? We're planning for a fully face-to-face. So which ones legitimately can I scale back on, but also which ones have been most impactful for students and teachers? And it's a significant cost to districts.
Sure.
Because I don't want to think about all the growth, right? So think about the professional development that teachers have had to learn on the fly. We're a small department. I was able to hire a digital learning specialist this year who has been incredible in supporting staff. Well, I don't want to go backwards, right? And if I get rid of some of the new software programs that are truly, taking that one-to-one to the next level, then what am I telling? What is that? What message are teachers getting in that regard too? So it's really hard. I don't know. But what we're going to do.
But I do think it's an approach that you have to. This is a kind of a shift in a paradigm that I watched the evolution of internet access become something in the technology budget to becoming a utility like electricity, water, and so on. And it was nice watching that because it's not something you argue about in this budget year. You pay the electric bill, you pay the water bill, and so on, and you pay the internet bill. Well, we're probably in a situation like that too, where in regards to software, you can't, it's not a tech problem, it's a district problem. And if you want to continue to perform and do things, two examples I'm looking at is we kind of forced to upgrade to Google Enterprise for all the features. So there's an expense that you can't go back if you're going to do that. GoGuardian is our filter. We had to extend it to all the computers. Well, that wasn't what we did before. We did half of them, 8 through 12. Now we had to do to all of them. And again, the bait and switch that these companies are brilliant business plan, give it to them for free during the crisis, and then charge them as soon as it's over. Well, it's over, it didn't end, and here we are. So we're forced to buy many of the things that we got for free in the spring, which was a great lifeline, but there's always the other foot has to drop sometime. And then that's what happened. But it's the kind of thing where we can't go back from protecting the computers that are at home with a GoGuardian or a Securely or what all the different products that are out there. So I think if your audience, Brandon, of this podcast, are tech directors, don't bear the burden on yourself. This is a district issue. Bring in your superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager, saying we have to continue this. I'm not going to argue or debate this line item because this is just what we do. And if it's assistant superintendents, it's a problem for all of us.
I was just going to say, I agree with you 100%. But when you only have limited funds that are coming from the state, it's going to be, are we having a smackdown to see whose line items are going to be funded?
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate, but I agree with you that it's a curriculum and tech issue. It's not just a tech department issue, but I mean, ultimately, where are the funds coming from?
Yeah. The size of the pie hasn't changed, right? The pie is still the same size. And now we're trying to cut it up into smaller pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just think it's
be careful of what you're purchasing, or I tried to be, and I'm sure you all were the same when teachers were reaching out and saying, hey, I want to try this. And I asked them before they tried anything this spring, send it to me so I can vet it to make sure that privacy issues are, aren't a problem. And that kind of helped control things a little bit before they jumped in and used it. But there was a few things, the vocabulary or CAMI that I can't sustain the cost of those. They're just way too high. And I know you're all in that same boat, but trying to be as careful as possible. So as we got to this point, how do we afford? But still, it's out of control. And how do you continue to move on? And I'm sure you're all in the same boat. Budget this year is really rough. A lot of businesses were closed. There's nobody supporting us. Money in the town is down. So everybody's feeling the impact. So it's going to be interesting for sure. And I don't think we're done this year. And also, that being said, how do we know what the instructional mode is going to be in September? I mean, we're all still walking around with masks, which we never expected to still be in this situation at this time last March. Who would have ever dreamed? So we don't know what September looks like. So how do you figure that out now in budget season? What's it going to look like? What do I need? What are the teachers are going to need? Who knows? So you have to kind of go with what, like Karen said, the best practices, what's worked, what's made the most impact, what can we keep, and really pick and choose.
Yeah, we left on March 13th, kind of thinking it would be a 2-week shutdown, right? And here we are in week 40-something, which I guess sort of brings us to the next point, which is, what sort of things have you needed that you never really would have expected? I, for one, started purchasing writing tablets for math and science teachers. Never in my mind would I ever have thought that we would have been purchasing something like that. We've had world language teachers that wanted document cameras. Again, sort of a surprise. And the final one, and I guess this is the one that has been the most difficult, is live streaming of classes. We have some teachers that have volunteered to live stream their classes. We've had others that are full-time educators who are home and teaching to their classes who are in our buildings, but they are live streaming from their home into their classrooms. So the kinds of things that we needed to make that work. And I'm just kind of throwing it out to the group here. What sort of things have you seen in that realm of, live streaming or surprises?
Wow, we talk over each other, and now no one talks. It's not a really good model.
I caught everyone mid-drink there.
All right, I'll go with it.
We're waiting for you to go first, Jonathan.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first. I found that, depending on a Chromebook for a teacher to do live streaming and other things was just not happening. I know there are districts out there that teachers have Chromebooks. They don't perform like a PC or a Mac or something with some more a processor. So making sure they had legitimate computers, it's a little touch and go with the Chromebooks. But the other thing we had we just were able to pull out of the trash, which was fairly popular, was a second monitor to teachers.
Yeah.
To extend the monitors. So we had stations that were on their way out the door and literally in the garbage heap, that we kind of got more life out of because we extended the screen, and the teachers loved it. Just as you mentioned, the document cameras, the kind of the whole setup in the classroom, risers for their computers, things that you wouldn't expect. They have a beautiful setup to do. Our district chose to bring the teachers to us. They come in and they're in their empty classroom when we were full-time remote and the cohort days. We do the AB days, but right now we're in the middle of a full shutdown except for the teachers that come in. I know some teachers, but we've had situations where teachers quarantine and they broadcast from their home to their classroom with an assistant in the classroom to monitor the kids, but the teacher's on the screen teaching the kids. I loved one situation. I walked by a room and the teacher was reprimanding two kids in the back of the room because they don't pay attention or whatever it was from their screen at home. So I'm like, this is great. This is the future of education. I'm remote disciplining my children from far away. So it's just like,
it's the Apple ad
but
from 1984, right?
we had arrived. Yeah. The teacher could see the kids and say, you two are always doing this. And I thought that was just a funny thing, that the teacher had full control with a TA in the room monitoring the actual human bodies in the room, but that's so the addition of those things, the setup of a teacher wasn't as specific and grand before COVID as it is now. And that is getting them a full kind of a full command center, if you will, with monitors and Chromebooks and plugged into smart boards and things like that. So it's a real kind of cool thing that they have. So that's the addition.
We're not quite as cool as you are in Dartmouth.
We are cool in Dartmouth. It's one thing.
We don't quite have the same setup.
We know that about you.
We do have, all of our teachers have laptops, and we had to, make sure that our paraprofessionals had devices as well. They had, kind of the hand-me-down laptops, and then they were just so slow. We tried to give them the Chromebook, but as you said, sometimes the Chromebooks are challenging for some. So we've been back and forth. So I think just the sheer number of people who needed an extra device, that was a little bit of a surprise, but also tech support for parents was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, not that I didn't anticipate the level of need. I knew it was going to be something, but I didn't know it was going to be to the extreme, especially when we came back to school in September. So we had implemented a new software program and actually set up like a guest tech support request. We don't have phone lines like a call-in tech support. So the sheer volume of emails and tech support requests, that was a little surprising. I'm not gonna lie. And then also like just little things that made our lives easier, like the tape that you use to print off students' names and serial numbers, and to do inventory for different things. Like, oh, we need to get more tape. Like those kinds of things, just silly things, and scanners and such. Trying to make our processes more streamlined, right? So I think we've come a long way in a year, and definitely we just got a shipment of new document cameras that we're going to be handing out to teachers. So I think that will make a difference. But again, that was we ordered way back when, and they just came in, so we're talking, months it's taken. So I guess I'm not surprised by the draw on technology, and I think everybody trying to get what they think their teachers and staff need. And it's almost like putting a blindfold on and shooting at a dartboard because you're hopeful that you're making the right decisions. In terms of live streaming, we don't have that experience in Norton, so I am eager to hear what Colleen has done, and you as well, Brandon.
So for me, coming on board Seekonk last year in this role, I've now decided I'm going to go work elsewhere. No, I'm kidding. I joked that I was going to be a greeter at Walmart. But no, what was the biggest thing is I came into a district and teachers were using Macs. And I thought, holy cow, how the heck are we going to afford to refresh those because they had been purchased in 2015? This is 2019. I don't have that kind of money. And so going into the 2019-2020 school year, rewriting the tech plan, in tech meetings, we decided that we weren't going to buy as many Macs and we were going towards Chromebooks and Windows. And I had come from a district with Chromebooks, but they also had desktops. So I figured we can do that. Well, that's totally scrapped because we now know that's just not a good model to go with the Chromebook. So we bought with some of the CARES money, a lot of Macs to refresh our teachers. And so that was a huge expense that I didn't expect, but it also helped incredibly. Buying them for paraprofessionals. So I wanted to do that, but I figured we'd start with one school. We got them for all, so that addition. But that's been great. I think that's probably been the most positive thing that has happened because of this. Our teachers have jumped in and done it and figured it out, and the paraprofessionals, and they are just leaps ahead of where they could have been without the shutdown as far as professional development and their tech ability and their skill level. It's incredible. And they're still learning and they're so gracious when you teach them anything because they're so willing. So I mean, for that, I've always been happy for that shutdown because I think it made a huge difference for them. We bought, a lot of different things, filling in where we could. I don't know, endless amount of stuff. So I'm not surprised. It was just whatever would work to make things go. So now we're in the middle. We started a pilot in early December for anyone interested in live streaming. We're trying to up the numbers, up the engagement, especially when a kid is quarantining. They feel really disconnected from the class. So we're really trying to get teachers to live stream a little bit more, and very little trickling in for folks that wanted to jump on board. But since break, more and more I've been handing out Chromebooks all morning to teachers. They're excited about it. They're seeing the benefits of connecting with the kids at home. I was in with the third grade group this week. I had set them up 2 days ago. So I was just checking in, how you doing? And they're like, love it. This has made such a huge difference. High school teachers saying, they were so concerned about covering all the material for AP, or other classes, they're now seeing the benefits. And my original plan back in July was I'll get every teacher an iPad and a tripod. It's future proof. They can use it for other things, creativity, but they can also live stream. That would be perfect. Well, we just decided not to go live stream, so that got scrapped. So that money was gone, spent on other things. So we actually ordered additional Chromebooks that was going to be part of our refresh, and I'm handing those out. So teachers have their Mac or Windows device and a Chromebook, and that's their dual monitor. And then we've given anyone we have incentivized for any of the teachers who jumped on our pilot, given them $100, and they're purchasing some tech needs that they need right away. So we've been looking at even a standing desk to position the device, or ring lights and X pens, or any of those things that might make their life easier in instruction. And I'll take some of those models and fill that in, hopefully, with the other teachers as they continue to live stream and pick up on board. So we know we're going to set in place by January 19th a certain number of hours that we are live streaming in every classroom across district. So every teacher will have 2 devices. I think that will be great. They weren't going to before, but now they can have one that's connected to their projector. Next year, if we are in person, they can take the other one back and forth without having to plug it into the projector, unplug it. It will make it a little bit easier. So another good thing that came out of the whole mess.
Yeah, I know for us, we had some teachers that were working in their homes and live streaming into the classroom, starting at the beginning of the year. So we had a learning curve there. And then we've had some teachers who have had to quarantine, but felt well enough because they were asymptomatic that they wanted to live stream in too. So, some of the things we had to figure out were sound issues. It wasn't like, we had the laptop that could sit out in front of the desk and the kids were on board, and we had a staff member that could go in there and co-teach. But it was, there's this horrible echo. And why do we have this horrible echo? And the reason was we've got ceiling mounted speakers that the teacher's voice is coming out of. So that voice is then being amplified back into the microphone again from the laptop. So we had to get external microphones to supplement that. So that was now what do we do? Someone brought in a microphone and it worked. So then it's a scramble for microphones, right? As everything else has been. So, it's tough to look right now at the future, quote unquote, and figure out what we really need to go forward. Because we've kind of been playing catch up in some ways, and we've tried to put out fires in other ways and stay on top of things to try to be proactive. But it's so hard when the target keeps moving.
It does, yeah.
That's a good way to put it. It does.
It does. We don't know what September will bring. Everyone back. I wrestle with the idea of retrieving all of the Chromebooks in June. Whether it's the thought of it. Some part of me wants to put my head in the sand and say I don't want to see them, because I'm sure their condition will be a little bit worn. Because before they used to live in carts, and their lifespan was much greater because it would be a very controlled environment. Now these Chromebooks have been around back and forth from home, and it's great that they're being used, but I just have a feeling there'll be a lot of casualties. So I'm looking for that. And I'll look to SCITT for people. That's one thing to make a plug for SCITT too, is to hear testimonials of special groups. You mentioned a tablet, Brandon. We had modified some iPads so that you could write and project at home and stuff like this. So little projects that have come out of it with teachers. And we were fortunate, like Colleen, you had mentioned you guys had purchased Chromebooks like right before the onslaught, or, just like, and you're almost like, oh, that was lucky. It's like buying stock before.
It was so awesome.
We had did the same thing with tech teachers. We have one at every level, every school. We have a tech teacher. It was like buying Apple stock at $30. It was like, it was just because you got in the ground floor, because it just happened, and it was just dumb luck, and we're planning and the whole thing. But at a time when they were never more valuable. I've got the 5 most amazing instructional tech people that have been there for the little stuff. Yeah. The little stuff is what, the devil's in the details. So it's just like they've been really there to guide the teachers through the process, and make the little setups and all this other stuff. So that we couldn't have done with the tech people I have. There's just not enough people to go around.
Right. I remember the same thing with our Chromebooks at the end of last fiscal year. My superintendent had said, well, why don't you get a price on 500 Chromebooks just to kind of, get ahead of this thing. So I got a price for 500, and I bring it back to her, and she goes, how about 750? Wow. So I come back with the price for 750, and she goes, what about 1800?
Whoa.
And it just was like,
good. Yeah.
We're like, oh, sure. Wow. Okay. Oh, sure. Absolutely. No problem. And then it was the, I don't know if you've seen Argo, the movie with Ben Affleck, where they're trying to escape the Iranian hostage situation. And basically at the very end of the movie, the plane is sort of barely taking off, the cargo plane, and they figure out that the main characters in Argo, and it's based on a true story, that they're actually in that cargo plane, and they're kind of chasing them down the runway. That was us with the Chromebooks at the end of last year. Like,
get out. Yes.
Yeah, we got them from Gov Connection, and I've shout out to Sean McFadden, who was a college classmate of mine and hooked us up big time. Yeah. But it was, once those got dropped off at our school, and I tracked that thing like I've never tracked a package before.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah, we got lucky. We really got lucky. And there are other.
And I feel like we got lucky too. Same situation, but we were even earlier because we were in that process of that one-to-one planning. I purchased quite a bit, and then it was just, okay, I have more money, CARES is here, and right away purchase more. So it helped. I think the last 200 was part of one of the grants that came in week before Christmas, but that was extra. Yeah. So we were already well in advance and had it all in house, and it was like, phew, I don't have to wait.
Right.
So I know some people are getting thousands this month or last month.
Still waiting. Right? I know, it's amazing.
Right. You're still waiting. Yeah.
I personally, I think mine were on Bob Kraft's Patriot plane that brought back all the masks, because I got mine right before the rush too. But I don't know how they got out of China so quickly, but they got out. There was one the state had done. They asked if you wanted something. I should have bought 1,000, but you were able to say how many you wanted, so I put a few hundred in. But it's been tough. We've waited. We have a cluster that will be extras because they break. That were ordered. When was it? November. and they're coming in March 18th. So it's just like
Wow.
this.
Thank goodness you weren't dependent on them,
Right.
that you could continue on without.
Right.
Sorry, Karen.
No, I actually had a really, I guess, good fortune. We had I guess it was the tech grant, and we had some money that we needed to spend before December 31st. Oh, but yes, I know it's been extended, but we were under the assumption that we had to spend it by December 31st. So I had the good fortune of just, getting an email from a vendor who said, we have these in stock. And I reached out and said, hey, do you have, 225, which is for us enough for a grade level plus those repairs. And they did. And I literally got them within a week. And
Wow.
I think it was just because it was a small number, and I ordered and they were here before, I think it was like the 23rd, 24th, probably the 23rd. But I think to myself, that's just sheer luck, because we've got districts much larger than our districts, because let's look at this. We're all from very small districts in the big scheme of things. If I was in a Worcester or a New Bedford, Fall River, or Boston, I don't think we would have gotten so lucky to be able to get that sheer volume, the numbers that they need. So I will say too, one thing that I didn't realize, we did buy headphones for all of our elementary students, because I was thinking, when they come into the buildings and they have their devices, oh my, I was a former technology teacher, and I remember being in the computer lab, and there's nothing like a kindergartner who has a set of headphones on, right? And they are like screaming at the top of their lungs because they have no sense, right? So I thought, oh my gosh, well, either the poor classroom teacher is going to have these new devices with these kiddos in the class, they're going to be screaming, or excited, involved in whatever new app or program, or we can at least have them just, randomly yelling with the headphones on. So that has worked out. So anyway.
So to finish up here, because I know you're all busy right now, especially you're busy. We're busy all the time, I guess. What has been the thing that you're most proud of coming out of this?
Do I have to go first?
I can start because I have
thank you.
I thought about this question ahead of time, so I'll let you think about what. So for me, the thing I'm most proud of is that our staff have gotten to a point where we're no longer giving presentations on just tools. We're not just saying like, hey, here's Google Docs and here's how to make a hyperdoc, right? We've gotten to the point now where we're talking about doing presentations on pedagogy and things like, how do you level up your tech lesson with the SAMR model? How do you take that thing and turn it into an evaluate or a create or an analyze with Bloom's using your technology? I think, and for us, for the last 4 years, a lot of it has been like, hey, try Pear Deck's Flashcard Factory. It's really fun. It's engaging. Your kids will like it. It's a different way to learn. Now we're looking at saying things like, okay, you have your kids doing a slideshow presentation. How can we level that up and think about that in our daily lesson planning? So having had that conversation with teachers has been, for me, the most exciting part.
I think it's something that I think in the way you worded it, I don't know if I'm proud of it or as much as I'm happy what happened, because I think what's happened to educational technology is it just exploded because there was a need. I mean, everyone was brought to their knees and we had to do this. I have teachers that have stepped up that I didn't expect to step up because we've had to. And the ones that have always had technology from a distance realize I can't survive without this. I have to go full boat. So I don't think I did that. COVID did that, but I think it's the human element, the human condition rose to the occasion. So that's what I'm most happy about in this situation, where you're not trying to sell the technology to teachers like I have in the past over my 25-year career, but you're almost trying to keep up. And it's one of those things where that's a good thing.
Colleen?
I think there's so many things. I mean, just how far advanced we've come has probably been the best possible thing. And the thing that, I mean, I can't take credit for, certainly it's COVID, but I think I'm so proud of the teachers and their willingness to jump in and just do and be flexible. I know it's difficult. So many of our teachers had absolutely no technology skills. This was still, although they had some devices in their classroom, technology was still very new to them and they had very little training. So it was like, you know, giving a new baby a tool and telling them to figure it out in some ways. But they have, and what they've done and what they're continuing to do, and how excited they get when something works and they're willing to try. And we are beginning those talks of pedagogy, which I'm hoping will continue to grow and head in the direction that you are, Brandon. But it's so nice to see that. I think that's been great. I think I'm really proud of the way that everybody came together and just did it. I mean, I still think about March and the way it looked out my back door and how we were just like, we were actually at my budget meeting the other day, we were all laughing, the superintendent and business manager and I, about, here, you have a Chromebook, you have a Chromebook. I felt like Oprah. Right. But it was so great. And that wouldn't have happened without the incredible team effort. I mean, every single person from central office jumped on board. I mean, superintendent was outside in the rain and snow handing out Chromebooks and talking to parents. Everybody was. It didn't matter who you were. And that, I think, is those two things are probably the best possible things that could have come out of this. Seeing that teamwork and building those relationships and making them even stronger, especially as a new person, and seeing the leaps and the growth that the teachers have endured.
Yeah, Karen?
I would say, I'm proud of our staff in Norton for taking risks, and maybe being a little bit more honest about their comfort level with technology, where before they might not, they might have tried to hide a little bit. There was no hiding, at the beginning when everybody was full on remote, and even now, I feel like people have really taken to our digital learning specialist and have really asked for help. I think that can be a humbling experience, if you're not accustomed to it. And some teachers, new or veteran, have had to ask for help with technology. So I think, I'm proud of the staff in that regard. I'm also really proud of my team, and I know that you all are as well, but I have the best team, just saying. My technicians and network administrator, and the way that we were able to come together and not kill each other, but really focus on, like, let's get the job done. Like, just amazing when I think back. So I guess that's it.
I feel like I have the best team, so we should have like a competition, like an Olympics of IT departments.
I would be happy to do that.
Because I would put my server technician in a cage match with any other technician.
If it is a let's set up the centipedes for Chromebook enrollment, I got the guy for that.
Okay.
So I think this has actually already happened, and it was called Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, did it really? Well, all of my memories usually come from movies anyway, Brendan. So I do things that I think happened in a movie. So maybe
so this is like ego. Sort of half Revenge of the Nerds, half Anchorman. The fighting of the news crews. So we'll leave it there. Jonathan Gallishaw, Colleen Terrill, and Karen Winsper, thank you so much for coming on the MassCUE Get a Q podcast. We've been talking about doing this for a long time. I'm so glad we were able to do it.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Great.
We will talk. Yes, and please listen to every episode. We will have a new one coming out in 2 weeks. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and anywhere podcasts can be found. This is the Get a Q podcast from MassCUE, here to educate, connect, and inspire.